As an Etsy seller coach, I hear a lot of misinformation about Etsy as a platform and constantly have people asking me if certain things they've heard about Etsy are true. But let's be honest, over the past few years, Etsy has grown by leaps and bounds when it comes to number of shoppers and number of sellers on the platform, which means there's now a lot more voices speaking regarding Etsy as a platform in general. Some legitimate and some not so much. So it pretty much all comes down to this. Some information you'll hear about Etsy is sound, correct, and backed by data, and some is just simply inaccurate. So today we're chatting about 7 of the top misconceptions I hear regarding selling on Etsy and setting the record straight. And we're starting right now. Hey friends, welcome back to the channel. If you're new here and we haven't met yet, I'm Kate. I'm a wife, mama, Etsy seller, and business coach, and I'm here to help you start and scale your online business so that you can make a full-time income doing what you love. As I mentioned before, we're about to dive into 7 of the top Etsy misconceptions and myths that I hear all the time. I'm going to explain why these are myths and misconceptions and set the record straight so that we can make the most informed decisions possible for our shops. So if you're excited, give a little love tap on that thumbs up button and let's dive in. All right, myth number 1 that I hear a lot, and I actually just heard it worded exactly like this a few days ago. Someone said, Etsy takes over half of your profit. Now, I just want to be clear on this. Etsy doesn't take anything from us sellers that we don't already know when we sign up for the platform. There are fees associated with selling on Etsy, yes, just like there are going to be fees on any marketplace that you choose to sell on, whether it be Etsy, Amazon, eBay. There are fees associated with all of them because they are providing a service and a platform for us to have an audience on. Etsy very openly explains what the fees are on the website. It's not like they're trying to be secretive, and they're definitely not a scam for having seller fees. You can very easily see all of the different fees laid out if you go to Etsy's house rules, the fees and payments policy, and they're all listed out here for you to read through. But the main ones that you'll want to take note of are the listing fee, the transaction fee, and the payment processing fee. So the listing fee is just 20 cents USD for each time that you either list an item for sale for the first time or it renews. So that's 20 cents for the listing fee. The transaction fee on Etsy is 6.5% of the price that you display for each listing, plus shipping or gift wrapping if you have that available. So the listing fee and the transaction fee applies across the board no matter what, but then there's also possibly a payment processing fee if your shop accepts Etsy payments. If you scroll down, you can read all about this payment processing fee, and this only applies again for shops that use Etsy payments, and the amount of the fee is based on where your bank account is located. So if you click this Etsy payments policy, you can see for each different country what the fee is for payment processing. So for instance, for the United States, the fee will be 3% of the transaction total plus 25 cents. So even if you add up the listing fee, the transaction fee, and the payment processing fee, it's definitely not anywhere close to 50%. You may also need to consider offsite ads fees. These are fees that are only applied if your listing makes a sale through one of Etsy's offsite ads. So let's say Etsy is advertising your listing on a platform like Facebook and it makes a sale through that offsite ad, then the offsite ads fee applies. The fee for offsite ads is either 15% or 12% depending on your shop's threshold, which you can read all about in the policy. But even if you add up the 20-cent listing fee in addition to the transaction fee, the payment processing fee, and possible offsite ads fee, it's still nowhere close to 50% of your transaction total. Now, in a perfect world, it would be amazing if we just didn't have to worry about any fees, right? But like I mentioned before, any marketplace platform that you choose to sell in is going to have some type of fee associated with it. Now, I personally think the fees are completely worth it when you consider all of the different services that Etsy is providing to you as a seller that make it so much easier for you to get started quickly and for you not to have to worry about things like providing your shop interface, payment processing, order tracking, bringing in tons of organic traffic for you. There are millions and millions of shoppers on Etsy, which means that right when you sign up to sell with Etsy, you potentially have all of those buyers right there at your fingertips. So the con of paying just a little bit per sale in fees is worth the benefits and the pros you get from selling on a platform like Etsy, in my opinion. Now, this is completely a myth of Etsy taking more than half your profits. I'm not sure where this came from, but the fact of the matter is you are in charge of your price point on your listing. So it's a matter of having the correct and accurate price point to cover those fees and still be high enough to bring in a healthy profit margin for you to keep. Of course, if you price your items too low, yes, a lot of the fees are going to cut into what you actually get to pocket at the end of the day, but you are in charge of that. So you can raise your prices and keep more more profit. There is a smart pricing strategy that goes into this, which I've talked about on this channel before, but you want to be able to price your items to cover the fees. Go ahead and build those in to your pricing, knowing that they're going to be taken out at the end of the day, and price your items high enough for a healthy profit margin. One tool that I recommend to use for pricing your items accurately is the Sales Samurai Profit Calculator. There are so many things you can do on Sales Samurai, which is one of my favorite Etsy research tools, but one of my favorite parts of Sales Samurai is the profit calculator. So the reason I love this profit calculator is because it already has the Etsy fees and taxes built in, and you can put in your amounts for your price, your shipping price, all of your costs, and it will automatically calculate with the Etsy fee amounts built in what your profit margin would be. So you can look here and see in this section the fees and taxes. You can choose if you want to calculate it based on a 0% offsite ads, assuming that you're making the sale on the Etsy platform, or if you want to see what your profit would be if Etsy took out the 12 or 15% for offsite ads, you can choose that. And then it also includes the 20 cents listing fee, the 6.5% transaction fee, and the payment processing fee. So let's say that we want to play around with some numbers here, and let's say that our listing price is going to be $50. This is how much the customer is paying. So let's say we have free shipping here for the customer. We're going to leave that at 0, and then there's 0 for a coupon or a discount. And then we put in our costs. Let's say that labor costs, we want to pay ourselves $20 for our labor. Our materials cost $10. Our shipping is going to cost $8. And then we're going to leave our Etsy ads and renewing to 0. It already automatically inputs the fees into that. So we're going to click calculate, and then we're going to look here at the right side, and it's telling us that our estimated margin at that price point would be 14%, giving us $6.80 profit. So this profit calculator is just a really fun and useful tool to come on and experiment with to get just the right price point for each listing and know exactly the amount of fees that are going to be taken out and profit will be left with for each price point that we put in. I use Sales Samurai for everything in my Etsy business, and if you want to try it out, I have a free 3-day trial linked in the description box below. You can use that to try it out for free, and don't forget to input the code KATE20 when you sign up in case you decide after that 3 days you want to continue using Sales Samurai. That'll automatically give you 20% off of your Sales Samurai plan. So at the end of the day, are there fees on Etsy? Yes, of course you're going to have fees, but you can price your listings in a way to cover them and still make a healthy profit for sure. All right, moving on to myth number 2, and this is that Etsy suspends shops for no reason. Okay, so let's take this from the beginning. Does Etsy actually suspend shops? Yes, of course they do. They will suspend shops if they are in violation of any of Etsy's policies, and sometimes Etsy suspends brand new shops to give it a time of vetting them to make sure that they're a legitimate seller and that the person that's claiming to open the shop actually is the one opening the shop. Those would be the 2 main reasons a shop would be suspended. So let's talk about the first one, which is if a shop is in violation of Etsy's policies. So sometimes a seller will not know why their shop has been suspended and they didn't realize it, but they unknowingly violated one of the policies. So your best bet as an Etsy seller to ensure that you're not violating any of Etsy's policies and risking suspension of your shop is to come to Etsy where it says Our House Rules and click on Sellers. This is where you can see all of the seller policies that you are expected to abide by as an Etsy seller. You can click here and read through the overall seller policy and then also see specific policies down here such as the community policy, the handmade policy, prohibited items, privacy policy. You are expected to abide by these, and if you are violating them in any way, Etsy does have the right to suspend your shop. So for instance, if we click on handmade policy, if you're claiming to be a handmade seller on Etsy, this is clarifying that handmade sellers are expected to either be the maker of the item or the designer of the item. If you are not making the item that you're selling yourself or designing it yourself, you are technically not a handmade seller. And if you're just reselling items that you've neither made or designed yourself, Etsy has the right to suspend your shop for that. Of course, this is if you are selling in the handmade category. Now, there are other categories too, like vintage and digital. So you can read all about those in Etsy's policies, but you just want to make sure that you're informed as to what Etsy is requiring for the category that you're selling in. So Etsy very clearly puts out there what their policies are so that you can check as a seller to make sure that you are following those and you're not even unknowingly in violation. Etsy will not suspend a shop for no reason, so you can bet if your shop is suspended, it's either because you are maybe unknowingly violating one of the policies, or it could be because your shop is relatively new, and Etsy does sometimes suspend brand new shops because they are going through a process of legitimizing and vetting that seller to make sure that they are not trying to resell, to make sure that they are not against the policies, and to make sure, like I mentioned before, that the person opening it actually is the person person they're claiming to be. This is actually a good thing because in the past few years, there has been a rise in people trying to sell on Etsy, not for the reasons that Etsy is there for handmade or digital products, but they're trying to resell in mass quantities, which is definitely not allowed on Etsy. So if you open up a new Etsy shop and your shop gets suspended right after you open it, don't panic. It's actually completely normal. Not everyone gets suspended, but a lot of people do for Etsy to just legitimize and vet the shop in the beginning. Your shop will be reinstated after a few days once Etsy goes through that process and determines that you actually are who you say you are. Of course, you can always reach out to Etsy if you feel like you need to for Etsy support, but in general, if Etsy validates your shop and doesn't find anything in violation, it'll automatically be reinstated without you having to do anything on your part. All right, we're about to move on to myth number 3, but first I want to let you know that if you're watching this around the time this video is being published, then you have the opportunity to join me live for a free masterclass on January 12th at either 2 p.m. or 8 p.m. I'm going to be going live twice that day to teach through my 5-pillar Etsy success formula training class. It's all about the 5 pillars that I personally use and train my students in using to start, grow, and scale a successful Etsy shop that brings in real profit. In this live masterclass, we're going to be learning how to identify a profitable niche on Etsy, how to offer products in a proven or predicted style trend, how to make sure that you're creating click-worthy and professional-looking thumbnail images for your listings, how to use smart SEO or search engine optimization strategy by doing keyword research, and how to actually market and promote your shop off of Etsy to drive some organic external traffic to get your sales and momentum going from day one. I lay it all out for you step by step in this 1-hour masterclass, so I'd love to invite you to join me live either at 2 p.m. or 8 p.m. on Thursday, January 12th by registering with the link in the description box below. I'm also going to be having a Q&A session on each of those live training classes, so come ready with questions that you want to ask about Etsy selling, and I'm super excited to just hang out with you guys and just have some time to chat through everything and help you on your Etsy journey. There also might be a free gift involved for everyone that shows up live, so you definitely don't want to miss this and miss out on getting that free bundle when you show up live to the class. All right, moving on to myth number 3, and that is that Etsy is too saturated and it's too late for new sellers. All right, friends, is Etsy crowded and saturated? Yes, there are a lot of sellers on Etsy, and there have been even more in the past few years as it's grown in popularity, but I'm here to tell you that it's absolutely not too late for new sellers, and it's not too saturated to be able to even start now and break through and be discovered. Market saturation in a crowded marketplace actually is a good sign because that means there's demand for the niche that you're thinking of offering. If there were no sellers and no shoppers on the platform for that niche, there would be no demand for your product, and that would put you in a really bad spot, right? So we want to see proof and validation that there actually is demand for the niche that we're thinking of. Now, I want to encourage you with this. If you're thinking of a broad niche that may be really crowded or what you would consider saturated, think about it more in terms of sub-niches. So let's say that you know you want to sell cups. Cups is a really broad general niche of a certain type of product category on Etsy, right? You can sell lots of different types of cups, but think about a sub-niche within that broader niche. So you know you want to sell cups, which might be really oversaturated, but when you think in terms of really specific sub-niches, let's say tumblers, and even more specific with the style that you want to offer, let's say you want to offer tumblers in a really pretty ombre pattern with different colors that go along with that gradient style, and then you want to get even more specific by offering customization or first name personalization, so then your product could rank for a keyword like personalized first name ombre tumbler. That is a lot less saturated than cups. When you get really specific and targeted with your niche and the keyword phrases you're using in your listings, it's definitely more possible to break through even when your broad product category is somewhat crowded. Try to find gaps in the market to offer products that are not being offered as much within those really specific targeted sub-niches. Now, it is definitely not too late for new sellers. I have several students that have started even just this past year and have not even had their shop open for 6 months yet that are already making consistent sales. It's really not so much a matter of how many sellers are on the platform as much as which shops are doing the best job marketing externally and driving their own traffic in the beginning to get some traction and some momentum going with sales. All right, let's move on to myth number 4, and that is that you need a ton of listings to open your Etsy shop. I've heard you need 50 listings. I've heard you need 100 listings, but that's just simply not true. Now, I do recommend you have enough listings on your first page so that your shop page appears full and complete and somewhat established when buyers sellers start to land on it, but this can be accomplished by simply having 12 to 15 listings on that first page for it to feel somewhat full. You definitely don't have to wait until you've got 100 listings ready to go to publicly open your shop. If you're waiting for this to really launch your shop, then chances are you're probably going to burn yourself out trying to get all of those listings going in the beginning, and they're not going to be great quality, or you might not even reach that point and get really discouraged before you ever even open. So I always opt for quality over quantity of listings. Now, yes, it's true, the more listings you have out there, in theory, the more chances you have to be discovered and reach different types of people. I'm not denying that, but I am saying that if you're burning yourself out by just trying to create so many listings in the beginning, the quality of your listings and your products, it's probably going to suffer, which then decreases your chances of those listings becoming bestsellers. The listings that become bestsellers are the ones that are top quality and really professional in every way, and creating these type of listings takes time and effort and research. So our goal from the beginning should never just to be create 100 listings as fast as possible so we can open up shop. The goal should be to create maybe 12 or 15 really great bestseller potential listings to open our shop with and then build from there. I know this from personal experience because my shop that's now grossed multiple six figures on Etsy started with just a few listings and has actually never been over 70 listings total in my whole shop. The majority of my success has come from having a few listings break out as bestseller listings, and those listings have brought in the traffic that then converted other listings as well. I think those few listings became bestsellers because I really put in the time and energy to research what I was offering, to optimize those listings with things like click-worthy professional looking photos, great SEO in my titles and tags and descriptions, and not rushing through trying to get tons of listings, but focusing on a few really quality ones. All right, myth number 5 is that it's better to have your own website rather than sell on Etsy. Now, I'm not saying that it's a bad thing to have your own website. I think it's wonderful, but if you're just starting out and you haven't done either, I definitely think starting on Etsy is a better way to go. There are pros and cons to each, but if you think about it, when you're starting on Etsy, you have millions upon millions of organic shoppers, of people that come to Etsy specifically when they're shopping for something because they just love shopping on Etsy, as opposed to opening your own website that nobody really knows about, maybe your family and friends, or if you have a small audience that you could promote it to. But in general, you're competing with the whole internet at that point and having to start from scratch, driving all your own traffic. Selling on a marketplace like Etsy gives you the upper hand because you have all of that organic traffic right there at your fingertips. Yes, you are having to compete with the other sellers on Etsy, but like I mentioned before, when you have your own website, in a way, you're competing with basically the whole internet. I do think it's smart once you start to get established to think about branching off and starting your own website so that you can have more control over everything that goes on and your shop is not owned by a marketplace. But it can be really hard to break through and get discovered when you start there. So my personal preference is to start on Etsy and to use the natural momentum of growing on a marketplace that has organic traffic, and then to begin to branch off later once you've started to gain some brand awareness and build your own audience that then can follow you over to your new website. All right, moving on to the next myth, which is that you won't have success on Etsy unless you're adding new listings or renewing your listings every day. All right, let me first start with this one by addressing where I think this myth comes from and where people have gotten this from in the past, and that is from the 7 factors that Etsy uses in the ranking process. So Etsy has spelled out exactly what process the algorithm uses to rank listings in the search results. Our goal is to be ranked as high as possible, right? So there's 7 factors, one of those being recency. This means that the Etsy algorithm gives a temporary boost to listings that are recently added, in addition to taking those other 6 factors into account when deciding which listings should be ranked the highest. Now, I'm not denying that recency is in fact one of those 7 factors, but Etsy has specifically addressed this, and they have said themselves that it's not worth just the slight temporary boost that a listing might get for the next few hours to be adding and renewing listings all the time when you don't need to be. Again, this comes down to quality versus quantity. I'd rather focus my time and effort and energy on quality listings that hit those other 6 factors, some of those being the conversion rate and the listing quality score, which takes into account how often it actually makes sales. So yes, you could be adding and renewing all the time and get a little bit of a boost from recency, but it it really does nothing if you're neglecting the other 6 ranking factors by having quality listings that are actually converting. Again, back to the quality versus quantity debate. In my opinion, focusing first and foremost on quantity is a quick way to burn out fast. I'd much rather you focus on creating an irresistible offer that actually is going to have a higher conversion rate in the end. All right, and our next myth is one that's really interesting to me, but I've heard it multiple times before, people saying that Etsy punishes shops that don't run ads. This one is just simply not true. I know from personal experience because I didn't even start running ads until about 2 years into my business, and I actually haven't even run ads that much. I had a lot of success and a lot of sales before I ever even considered running Etsy ads. So this one just is completely inaccurate. I'm not really sure where people get this, but you definitely do not have to be running Etsy ads on the platform to be successful, and Etsy does not punish shops that choose not to run ads. Now, do ads help with visibility? Yes, of course. If you pay to run ads on your listings, you have a chance to be shown higher in the search and to become more visible. That's the purpose of paying for ads, right? But it does not mean that shops that are going the organic route and choosing not to pay for ads can't be discovered. The vast majority of sales and traffic that have come through my shop have been organic, and a very small percentage have been just from when I've tested ads. But ads have definitely not made enough of a difference in my shop for me to really concentrate on that first and foremost as my marketing strategy. There are plenty of shops that have been wildly successful on Etsy just from only organic traffic. This is because they are doing an amazing job of driving their own traffic off of the platform from places like social media, their email list, a blog, a podcast. There are a lot of different places you can drive traffic from and get those sales going, so then your listings start to rank higher in the search and start to reach those organic shoppers on the Etsy platform. All right, friends, well, I hope you found that helpful, and I hope that clears the air a little bit on some of those myths and misconceptions, and hopefully that gives you a little bit more confidence going into your Etsy selling journey. Don't forget to click the link in the description box below to register for my free 5-pillar Etsy success formula masterclass. I'm going to be going live on January 12th at 2 p.m. and 8 p.m. Eastern time. I'd love to see you there, chat with you, answer all your questions, so check the link in the description box for that. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel if you're not already. We release weekly content on all things Etsy strategy and online business growth. Bye, friends.